Good afternoon, Mr. Pinkus. Thank you for being here today. So the first question I'm going to ask you is, the Flinders Fire occurred in November, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and it happened sometime in the evening, starting around 8 p.m., is that right?
As I recall, yes.
And you've worked in Nita City for about 23 years.
23 years, yep.
Okay. And isn't it true that a November evening in Nita City could feel cold?
Yes.
Okay. And the remains of the Flinders warehouse showed actually that one of the windows to the building was open. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. And you did not rule out whether other windows were open at the time of the fire, correct?
Well, all the windows were destroyed, so I couldn't tell their status, yes.
Objection, non-responsive, motion to strike, everything before yes. And you agreed that the fire did spread rapidly, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you did not rule out, though, that open windows could be a factor in helping the fire spread more rapidly?
I didn't rule that out, yes.
Okay. And is it possible that the smoke color was a reddish-brown color prior to the first observation of the fire 30 minutes after it had started? Is that correct?
Well, it could have been pink, yellow, black, gray, we don't know.
Objection, non-responsive, motion to strike that answer. Mr. Pinkus, I just need a yes or no answer from you for these questions. So I'll ask it again. Is it possible that the smoke color was a reddish-brown color prior to the first observation of the fire 30 minutes after it had started? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's possible.
Okay. And is it possible that the flames were large prior to the first observation of the fire 30 minutes after it had started? Is that correct?
Yes.
And isn't it true that you did not conclude about the amount of hydrochloric acid that was involved in the fire?
That's true.
Okay. And isn't it true that you did not conclude about whether hydrochloric acid was spread about the room, correct?
I don't remember that part. I don't remember what I wrote on that.
If I showed you a copy of your report, would it help you refresh your memory?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I'm showing a copy of David Pinkus's report of the Flinders Fire to opposing counsel. Okay. Opposing counsel approves. Your Honor, permission to approach the witness. Okay, Mr. Pinkus, I want you to read this section to yourself quietly, and when you're done, go ahead and look up at me, okay? So this part right here.
Okay, all right.
Okay, did that refresh your recollection?
Yes, it did.
Okay, and so let me ask you the question again. Isn't it true that you did not conclude about whether hydrochloric acid was spread about the room?
That's true. I didn't conclude that it was.
Okay. And isn't it possible for an arsonist to get caught in a fire of their own making?
Yes.
And isn't it true that the physical destruction caused by the explosion, fire, and the volume of water poured onto the fire could wash away evidence that the fire was actually intentionally set?
Yes, that's possible.
And you did not rule out the possibility that the fire was intentionally set, correct?
Can you restate or say that again?
You did not rule out the possibility that the fire was intentionally set, correct?
Yes.
And isn't it true you agreed with Chief Olson that Mr. Avery's background should be looked into as it pertains to the Flinders Fire?
Yes, that would be a normal thing to do.
Okay, and you agree that Mr. Avery's background was disquieting, as you phrased it in your
Yes, there's some concerns there, yes.
And Mr. Pinkus, isn't it true that you were paid by the plaintiffs to write a report for them?
Yes, of course.
And isn't it true that they paid you $300 an hour for your work on that report?
That's my standard rate, but yes.
Okay, and you were being paid by the plaintiffs to testify in court, right?
Yes.
And isn't it true you're being paid a total of $3,000 by the plaintiffs to sit here and testify today?
Yeah, that's a standard rate, but yes, that's what I'm charging.
Objection, non-responsive, motion to strike, everything, but yes. And you get paid a total of $3,000 each day that you testify in court for the plaintiffs. Is that right?
Yes.
And isn't it true that the majority, so 51%, of your experience in testifying as an arson expert in civil cases has been for the plaintiff's side, where you actually refute charges of arson?
Well, I work for both sides. I'm not exclusive.
Okay, objection, non-responsive, motion to strike that answer. Mr. Pinkus, I just need a yes or no answer for you on this question. So, isn't it true that the majority of your experience, so around 51% or more, of your experience in testifying as an expert in civil cases has been for the plaintiff's side, where you refute charges of arson?
Yes.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you for your time, Mr. Pinkus.